welcome to a brand new episode here on 1950's Farm. So hopefully you're all doing well and having a good day. We're just out, as you can see, with the McCormick and doing a bit of baling. We're missing more than we're baling because this baler is quite awkward to use for some reason. But yeah, so we're out doing the baling. You know, from the last episode we were mowing the grass, and we were mowing and rowing. We also cleared up the bales from the soybean field and made sure that they were safely in the shed. But say today why is that going that fast? Today we're out doing a spot of baling, and we'll get the grass and the hay baled, and then we'll get them collected perhaps in the next episode, maybe this episode maybe, but probably more likely in the next episode. And then really we're on the shutdown then towards winter. We've still got our field that was soybeans to plough, so we do still have a little bit of field work to do, but again we can probably do that over winter. And have a little bit of overwinter ploughing, and I have still got the grass to turn over as well. I was hoping that I was going to get that grass in that other field, in the second field, baled and cleared today, because then I could have planted some wheat in there, because we could have got it cultivated or ploughed or whatever, and then sown some wheat in there. But as it is, I don't think we're going to have enough time to do everything that we want to do, which is a little bit disappointing, but it's not the end of the world, to be fair, because it does mean that next year we can have like either a field of corn and a field of soybeans, or we can have two fields of soybeans, or whatever. So it's not the end of the world. It's disappointing because it sort of goes against my plans that I had, but at the end of the day, that field that we've just done, that field over there where we harvested the soybeans and then had to cultivate and drill the wheat in there, that took a lot of time, and I would imagine that in real life Harry maybe didn't always get done what he wanted to do on his farm, because he was busy working for the dairy. And as I've said before, that is one of the reasons why towards the end that he left, was just simply because the dairy basically issued him an ultimatum: you're either working for us or you're working for yourself. And Harry went off and decided to work for himself. But from what I can gather, they left on good terms. I don't think any bridges were burned in the in Harry going off and doing his own thing. I think they left in very good terms. Even in the modern day stuff that I'm reading at the moment, the dairy is still mentioned sporadically throughout, and mentioned in a good light. So I'm assuming that everything was okay. Just excuse my chair. So it was probably just it. Life had got to that point where they needed to sort of safeguard their business, and Harry decided that actually he could probably make a go of his little farm and turn that into a business. And that's what happened. So yeah, as I say, we're just out today with the old baler, and it is an old baler. It misses way more than it bales, which it's never helpful. I'm just thankful that the drill doesn't miss more than it drills. Otherwise, not only will the weeds come through very patchy, the crop would come through very patchy as well. So yeah, but to be fair, it wouldn't be so much longer, because round baling back in 1950 was, I'm not going to say it was a new concept, but it was a new concept where you had sort of semi-consistent round bales. you know, the biggest downfall to them in 1950, you know, certainly up to the, you know, the sort of mid part of the 1960s would be that they would bung up really easily, and the string system on them was not the best, so that when you open the door to release the bale, you basically just released a sort of semi-tied together pile of straw or hay. You know, it didn't resemble anything like a bale. But as I say, the dairy and Harry as well. It was the dairy had a round baler that Harry brought off them, which was sort of this round baler that we're using now. And Harry bought it off them, but he bought it off them at quite a cheap price on the premise that Harry would do all of the baling for the dairy farm as well. So it's kind of like they paid him for the he paid them for the baler, and then they said, well, that's very good, but now you need to do all our baling too. But Harry agreed, and that was how they came to not have a baler, and Harry came to have a baler. It wouldn't be all that long, late 50s I think it was when I read, to early 60s, when the dairy then did move over to a small square baler. They had a small John Deere square baler, and they moved over to that system, which was I'm imagining. I mean, obviously I wasn't around then, but looking at some videos, so there's not too much in the way of video evidence of the dairy or Harry's farm, but obviously there is video evidence of other, you know, 1950s farms around. And from what I can tell, having a small square baler was very labour intensive. So you had the man driving the baler, but then you had another man driving the tractor that was following with the sort of bale cart or flatbed trailer. Then you had two men. You had one walking beside the baler with a pitchfork, or beside the trailer behind the baler with a pitchfork, and he basically pitchforked them onto the trailer, and then another man then stacked the trailer. So that's sort of, you know, in essence, sort of almost four men that you needed to do sort of one job. Whereas with the round bales, with this way, although it's not hugely accurate, and that's kind of why I don't mind it missing stuff, because, as I say, the early round balers were not that accurate in their work, you know. But when you did get them set right, and when they, you know, when you sort of did have a good day, you had a very good day, because it was a you know, a very efficient way of doing it, because you only needed one man, you know, and then another man with a tractor and trailer and a forklift to, you know, then load the bale trailers up. And a lot of the farms back in the day had the bale trailers where, you know, like the bale slides that go on the back of the tractor and slide underneath and you lift it up. They had trailers that would have like four of them. Some were self-made, so they would just be four basically, or two prongs of steel sticking out from the frame of the trailer, and they would basically just rest the baler or the bale on those prongs. So yeah, I mean, it was you know, once you got it right, it was a good way of doing it, and it needed, you know, probably in essence, you know, two less men. You know, that wasn't very good English, but we'll keep it at that. So yeah, that was the way that you know, that Harry and the dairy decided to do it. And as I say, they moved over to a square baler, John Deere square baler, and that was when they started to upgrade their tractors. So the first thing they upgraded was the troweled combine, and what they bought themselves was 3 John Deere Land John Deere combines, and that was in 1953, I think that was. 1953, 54, something like that, and they had and they bought 3 of them, and that was what they used then for combining. So they then switched over to the self-propelled combines that were starting to just ever so gradually flood the markets. Massey Harris were doing one, John Deere and Lands, they were building one. Lands was already building tractors and combines sort of the same time or earlier than John Deere, when John Deere were sort of mass producing, and John Deere acquired the business in 19. I'm going to have to look this up again because I've forgotten the day, but I think it was 1932 when John Deere acquired them. 1942. Sorry. I think it was, but I'll have to look that up. But yeah, so they were, then produced. John Deere were able to produce self-propelled combines because Lands was already doing it, and literally John Deere, all they did was stick their name on it. So the very early John Deere combines were not actually John Deere combines; they just had the John Deere branding on them, but they were Lands. Later, when John Deere dropped the Lands company, or they just literally made the company John Deere, John Deere obviously then started to develop their own combines and their own harvesting equipment and baling equipment and stuff like that. But that was that was where their sort of first combines came from Lands, and some of their tractors, the tractors that the dairy would eventually sort of upgrade to, were Lands John Deere tractors, and that, as I say, that came in the late 50s, early 60s, which obviously we're a little way from now. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to just ever so slightly try and speed this series up a little bit, so there really isn't going to be much for me to do in winter. So I might just skip it on to spring, so that we just continually sort of keep sort of turning through the years, because otherwise it's going to take us a couple of years in sort of real terms to get to sort of anywhere near modern day. And obviously, although nothing's been said yet, we're half expecting a new FS game to come out later this year, and I've certainly not heard nothing. Nothing's been said yet, but that's what we're all kind of expecting, just because there haven't been no DLCs announced for the year. Personally, what I would like to see Giants do is to keep the game as it is and just keep bringing out DLCs and just keep bringing out sort of end of year, like they did last year with the Platinum Edition, and they did with the Forestry the year before. Just keep sort of bringing them out, but then through the rest of the year just bringing out DLCs, because we've sort of got the game that we want, we've got the mods that we want within the game, and now they're going to basically sort of poo-poo all of that and say, no, you all need to start again because we've decided that we want to change 2 things in whatever. There'll be some new brands coming in or whatever, and some new whatever, but technically from one game to the next, in my eyes, and I'm not a computer expert, but not much changes. It's the mods that make the difference, and we've got the mods that we want. We've got auto drive. I don't get on with it personally, but a lot of people do. So we've got the mods that we want. We've got the game set up how we want it. So it's a bit like what Euro Truck do. They keep the same game, so they update it, and they make and do regular updates, and they do sort of regular things to because the game that I bought, Euro Truck, that I bought when I bought it, I don't know, 6, 7, 8 years ago, is not the same game today. But I haven't had to buy a new game. They've just continually updated one game. And yes, occasionally their updates means that a Model 2 that I've been using doesn't work no more, and that's fine. I accept that, but come November or whenever, we're basically going to have a whole new game, and Giants don't really put enough in the base game to amuse us. So whilst I will buy the game when it comes out to show my support towards Giants, because as I say, I've had some pretty dark years over the last few years, and if it wasn't for Farming Simulator, I'm not sure where I'd be now. Because this game does entertain me, sort of royally, and and keeps me busy with things to look forward to, and obviously with now doing YouTube as well, that also helps, because now I'm sort of not only playing the game that I love playing, I'm doing it for YouTube. You guys seem to enjoy what I do, which is important to me. And so therefore, again, it gives my life a little bit of purpose, which otherwise it wouldn't normally have. And so I'm sort of really enjoying. So although I'm going to be buying the game to show my support and to say thank you for for the game in the first place, I probably won't play it that much for about a year. I didn't play 22 that much for the first year. I mean, in terms of YouTube, yeah, I probably will. I'll probably do a save on one of the base maps or whatever. So I probably will, but I won't be sort of able to do, or I won't be doing an in-depth series like I'm doing at the moment, and that I'm hopefully about to start doing. I'm hoping, if everything goes well, I might record the first episode of the new series this week. That's my plan. Things are a little up in the air at the moment in terms of whether that does actually get done, because my little boy's going through some issues at the moment, and obviously, as much as I like to do YouTube, and obviously he has to come first. If he lives with his mum and her girlfriend and what have you, and but he does a lot of the time. I didn't realise I'd completed the rounds that side. Sometimes he does ask for his dad, and so I go up and support whenever I can, whenever he feels like he needs me there. So, but hopefully, fingers crossed, everything go well and this week, and I'll be able to do that. Next week is half term, so again, it could be a bit up in the air whether or not there's a video every day, just because he might want to come over and spend time with me or whatever, and his mum may need a break, because as I say, he does have problems and he is a handful. But we'll see what happens, but it's definitely coming within the next couple of weeks, and I've been saying that. But it's now ready to be recorded. It's now set up and ready to be recorded. So it's not a case of I'm just saying it, to try and keep you all hooked. It's at the point where I just need to sit down and record. So yeah, exciting stuff. But so as my original point was, I'm gonna just move this winter along a little bit, and and try and move the years along, still a little bit quicker still, but we're still going to do all of the jobs, and we're still going to see all of the things that we sort of would have seen anyway. It's just over the winter months at the moment, Harry didn't have a great deal to do other than sort of kind of in real life feed animals and do odd jobs and maintenance around the farm, in his real life sort of thing. And on the game, I sort of really don't have that much to do. Feed the animals, but you don't want 4, 5, 6 videos where every video I just feed the animals. That's not content. That's just someone being lazy and putting out the same video. And I try not to do that as much as I can. Because I want you guys to have a point in your day where you look forward to coming to see these videos, because there's either me rabbiting on and sort of kind of chatting about absolutely nothing, and hopefully being a little bit funny, but there's also, you know, interesting bits of history, you know, certainly in this series. I mean, I could put history in the Britain series because, you know, the one thing I did before I did the Britain series was I literally read everything there was to read on Britons, and, you know, how they got started, where they got started, you know, sort of why they got started, and everything like that. So, I mean, in theory, you know, I could do a history, you know, through Britain's history if that's what people wanted. I kind of left it out because we were doing history in this one, and, you know, sometimes, and I would have been the same. You know, you sort of, you know, maybe didn't like school, maybe didn't like history, maybe didn't like sort of that kind of where you had to sit down and learn, and you come to YouTube to kind of get away from all of that, and then some ginger Wally is teaching you history whilst baling his fields, or ploughing or drilling or whatever else. So I kind of thought it was appropriate for this series to kind of put everybody in the picture as to what was happening and why it was happening. But for the Britain series, I kind of sort of thought, well, I better probably leave it out, you know. But if you want it in there, you know, as I say, I can soon, you know, sort of start telling you the history of Britons and Britain's farm toys, and, you know, who they're associated with today, and you know, their plans for the future. You know, that's no problem. I can soon add that in. As I say, history is something you know, I do love. You know, I do love a good Saturday afternoon at a museum somewhere learning about the past, because it's only learning about the past how we can make the future better. And when we start to turn our minds and our focus and ignorances towards the things that were in the past, is when modern day life starts to get messed up. And sadly, you know, that in my opinion is what's happened, that we've kind of turned our back on where we've come from and arrogantly decided we know best. And quite clearly, with the state of the planet, with the state of social life, with the state of everything that's going on in the world at the moment, we obviously don't know nothing. You know, and that's just my view, and this is not a political channel. This is not, you know, but, you know, for a minute's worth of content, that's what I think. And I think we would, as a race and as a society, we would do very well to go back and start to right the things that we've started putting wrong. But yeah. So there we go, ran over 23 minutes on the video. I was going to do some time lapse in this video. What I might do is I might now just do a chatty video. We've done this field, we've left some bits, but that's not too bad. This field's going to be turned over to cattle anyway, so they'll eat that when they come in. When they move in here, that'll be probably just before or just after winter. We'll get some calves, and we'll start the breeding process. So we won't sort of kind of, Jesus, this gate is an absolute bloody nightmare. There we go. We won't get sort of no beef sales for a few years, but we can start to build the herd. As I say, we'll probably have 10 calves or something, and we'll go from there. This is an absolute pain in the jacksy to get out, this gateway is, because you've got to be as far over there as you can get. The wheel just got through, and I know it just got through because it tips the baler up if it touches. We didn't really have to go through this gateway, James. We could have gone the other way, son. But there we go, we're out. So yeah, we'll get this field done now. As I say, we've got some contracting that we're going to do towards the end here as well, just to kind of help build Harry's money a little bit. And you know, because they're quite early on, you know, there were some changes that he started to make, you know, not only to his farm, but also building land, buying land around his farm, just little bits and pieces. And again, very luckily, I really did stumble across a very good map when I was looking for a map to play this series on, because although, as I say, this isn't a representation of where he lived or what the area was like where he did live. This is just a random map that I found, but there's a tiny little field here of grass, and there's a tiny little field, arable field, at the back here, and that is perfect because it was 2 small fields that he bought next, and so that just fits in lovely. And what we'll do is at some point we'll cut all these trees down. Not for a few years, but at some point we'll cut these trees down and we'll join it onto our field, the other side of the tree line, and that's what we'll do. Just because, as I say, that eventually we'll make one big field then, and that would be really nice. And the tree line at the back there went as well because, or not this particular, but Harry at the back of his land. Again, no pictures, so I'm doing this purely from imagination. But at the back of his land, he put in some chicken coops and a pigsty. And I kind of sort of thought, well, this land up here would be ideal for that. If we cut these trees and bushes down, we've got our scythe, so we'll be able to cut the bushes down. If we chop these trees down with our axe, then this is relatively flat, so we could then put chicken coops down here, and we could also put pigsty down here as well. And again, because it leads on to the land at the back there, again, it's something we can join through. So that's again, luckily fits in quite well with what happened. There is a period of time a long way in the future from where we are now where this map isn't going to fit into what happened in real life, but being a creative genius that I am, I'll make it work, don't you worry about it. I sound like a complete ponce then, excuse my thingy, but yeah, so that's to worry about in the future, and for me to go off somewhere and shrink my head considerably. But yeah, so we'll sort all that. But yeah, it's going quite well. So we'll get some good bales off here. We're going to keep a few bales. So the bales in the first field that we did, we're going to keep them because that will feed our cattle beautifully until the grass grows again next year. So we'll keep them, but these bales are going to the dairy. And the dairy, as I said the other day, has bought a grass field as well. And obviously it'll be the next episode. In the next episode I'll show you that, because we'll be cutting that, and I might, just because someone did kind of sort of intimate that they would quite like to see it, I might silage it, because I found the mod that they were talking about, and whilst it isn't what they did in real life, a little bit of give and take because it is a game, I can sort of do that and simulate that. So that's no issues. So I might do it that way, or I might this year just bale it, and then next year we'll sort of kind of sort of write it into the narrative. But I don't know yet. Just depends on time, because as I say, we're running out of time. It's now 2 o'clock in the afternoon. I've got until the end of today to make hay, because the grass will then die off for the winter, because as I say, it's November, and this is the last day that we'll have cuttable grass. So it could even be that if today's baling goes on too long, I might not even get there at all, but I will try to get there and cut that as well, because that will give the dairy farm all the hay bales they'll need for the winter. There is a couple of other fields as well around there that I might consider for the dairy as well, buying, because as I say, they do grow quite rapidly, very early in the story, or in the biography that I've read. They and even today they as soon as an opportunity of something or other arises, they're on it and they're doing it. They're not thinking about anything. And I think that's probably one of the lessons that Harry learned working for them. Don't think, do. Because and funnily enough, my dad used to say this to me as well. The more you think about it, the more you talk yourself out of it. So in the beginning, you'll have an instinct that will say it's the right thing to do, but then you'll hold yourself back. Then you'll think about it. Then you'll slowly begin to talk yourself out of it, of all the reasons why you shouldn't, and there'll be no reasons why you should. And he's very true. And I think he said that to me more specifically because I'm one of these people that instinctively seems to know what to do all the time, but confidence-wise, I don't then follow that through. I then talk myself out of it of, oh, I'm an idiot, how could I possibly know that do you know what I mean? And so I don't do it. And so, as I say, I think that's why he said it to me, was, don't think, do, and, he used to always say to me, if it goes wrong, or if you get it wrong, you'll have loads of time to think about it afterwards. It's kind of like, on the one hand, really great advice, and then on the other hand, it was like, but you'll live forever and a day knowing how badly you cocked it up. So yeah, as I say, we'll grow them, but we won't just be buying land for the sake of buying land, because as well, they at that time as well, they did do an awful lot of redevelopment of their farm, and that future-proofed them really. Harry, in his biography, says that it was doing that in the early 50s and mid 50s, and carrying it on, but it was doing it that early when the landscape was forever changing, not in terms not only in terms of business, but in terms of business opportunities and different things. So what sort of Harry learned quite quickly was that the dairy were always moving. They never stopped, they never stood still, and as I say, I think that's one thing that, and he doesn't say that he did, but it's one thing that for me comes across, is that he kind of learnt that, and he kind of sort of took that mantra on, where he recognized some opportunities and he did them. He didn't procrastinate on those opportunities. He just went out and did them. And that's probably why he has the business that he has today. Yes, it's very much different to the dairy farm. Yes, Harry's farm, that Serenity is slowly but surely taking over. They do dairy. They do pigs. They do a bit like the dairy. They do everything. The difference is that Harry's farm, if you like, they don't produce all of their own food, so their pigs go off to market, whereas the dairy, they produce their own pork, they produce their own sausages, produce their own ham, bacon, etc., etc., etc. From the cows they produce their own, milk, their own cheese, their own ice cream, and all of the other sort of dairy products and creams and stuff that you can think of. They produce it all themselves, and they sell it all themselves. They don't rely on supermarkets, whereas Harry's farm still does rely on the general markets for supermarkets and retail and stuff like that, for their milk and for their meat and for different things, and that's where they differ. And I think personally that's the reason why the dairy farm is as big as what it is because they do everything themselves. They're not relying on anyone. They are self-reliant. They produce all of their own food. They produce all of their own, everything they need to thrive as a business, they're doing themselves. They rely on absolutely no one. Fair play to them. Fair play to them. I have to admit, it's only because the dairy is mentioned in Harry's sort of biography of his farm. The name of the dairy isn't mentioned. It's just literally mentioned as the dairy. And I did toy on, rather than doing sort of Harry's story, doing their story. The reason why I didn't was because the dairy was already set up, it was already running, it was already producing food through the war years and before. Whereas the point of this series is that the American government have, handed out money to ordinary everyday people to produce food to start to refeed the world after the Second World War. And that was the story that I kind of wanted to tell, and I'm probably not telling it very well, but that in my mind is the story that I want to sort of portray in these episodes, or this series, or however you want to refer to it as. And so that's why in the end I did choose Harry's farm, was because it was a farm that, yes, although they had the land, they didn't. I think they had a tractor, and they had sort of one or two other little bits and pieces, but their farm and their business was built from the money given to them by the American government. That was what took them from being landowners to farmers, because back in the day, there was a significant difference between landowners and farmers in those days. And I guess that's still true today, really. I know lots of people that own land, and because they believe that one day it's going to make them a billionaire, they won't do nothing with it. And I sort of kind of think that's wrong. I think that they should be encouraged to either farm the land or build on the land. There is a huge shortage in this country of social housing and housing in general. And we've got many hundreds of thousands of acres just sat empty, basically overgrown. Wildlife havens, don't get me wrong, but we need to not only look after wildlife. I'm an avid countryist, if you like. In terms of, we need to protect our environment, we need to look after our environment. Without our environment, without the birds, the bees and the insects and everything else, we can't as a species survive ourselves. But at the same time, we mustn't forget that we also need to look after our own species. And so therefore the two need to go hand in hand. We can't just all of our work go towards saving insects if we're not actually going to save ourselves, because if we go, the insects are going to be fine anyway. So as I say, it's a whole thing. Anyway, this episode has gone on now for 38 minutes, so I am going to say, if you haven't already, please don't forget to like and subscribe. I hope you've enjoyed the video. The reason why I've done another video like this is because people have been saying that they do enjoy the stories, they do enjoy the commentary that I put on these videos, and I do try to be sort of informative as well as amusing, and engaging. And if there's anything you want to sort of talk about or add further to what I've either said today or another day, the comment section is there. Please use it. Please feel free, as everyone knows that does message me. I do, if not straight away, because sometimes obviously time constraints, but I do always get back, and I do always respond to the messages that I get, and not just with a thumbs up or whatever. I do message back. It's not like I ignore it or whatever. I do message back, and I do respond, because it's important. As I've said before, I'm on a community, so therefore in order to you have to lead from the front, and that's what I like to do. Anyway, as I say, if you haven't already, like, comment and subscribe. Thanks ever so much to all of the people that have subscribed. It means so much, and I'll see you again next time. Bye for now.